Now picture this, it's a beautiful day, you're enjoying a romantic moment on a canal boat, serenaded by your loved one.
Yes, that might bring back fond memories, if you've been there, of the Italian city of Venice. But we can go one better and take you to London's Little Venice to experience the pleasures of British canals with our very own Julia George. Morning, Julia.
Good morning to you. Yes, even on a damp autumn morning, it's quite a magical place to be. Just to my right here, we've got a lovely old Dutch barge, and then beyond that, the jaunty number behind is a traditional narrow boat. But let's take you a little way along the waterways as we talk about Little Venice, named by Robert Browning because it's the area of the confluence of two old canals, Regent's Canal and the Grand Union Canal. Now, of course, we're talking about the traditional freight network in this country. That's what they were constructed for. That's what they were used for. But nowadays, this is where people live, it's where they come on holiday. There's even a puppet theatre just over the other side. So let's find out a little bit more about the turning point. Mark Benstead is from British Waterways. Mark, it must have been, what, the middle of last century when things started to change? They weren't used for freight anymore. What happened?
Yeah, I suppose they had a heyday for about, lasted for maybe 30 or 40 years until the railways came along. That changed the economic, if you like, viability of the canal network, and quite quickly they started to decline. By the 1960s, they were pretty much in decline. Canals were being filled in. Had it not been for the campaigners that really kicked off in the late 40s, early 50s to save the canals from being filled in, the IWA, the early members of the IWA, it would have been a different scene to it is today.
OK, so who's the saviour? I mean, I hear Barbara Castle touted out there because of the Transport Bill in '68. Yeah. Was it down to her?
I think Barbara Castle, she had the foresight to realise that the future of the canals couldn't be just freight. There were parts of the country that were still busy with freight, but most of the country had declined. And really it was about a new future for canals, leisure, tourism, recreation. That had begun in the 50s and 60s. There were some early examples of it, but that began to take off in the 60s. And I think Barbara Castle can be credited for recognising that this was a future for the canals.
There were some false starts, weren't there? Because you were telling me money was being ploughed in to try and keep freight on some of the canals for a while, at the same time that the government was building motorways.
It's true. I think best of intentions, but maybe we got it wrong by about 20 years. And the Sheffield and South Yorkshire Navigation was a brilliant scheme, a fantastic scheme, but it was based on a freight expansion plan that was being carried out at the same time as the motorways were being expanded as well.
So now we're talking holidays, we're talking leisure, we're talking a beautiful place just to go and walk your dog alongside of, and you want people's memories, don't you? How are you going to capture them?
Well, we're very pleased that this 40-year anniversary is coming around. You know, lots of people associate the canals with a nostalgic era, and we know that lots of people, enthusiasts from those days, have got great pictures and great memories, and we're asking for people to sign up to the website, give us some ideas of their pictures and their stories, and we intend to put them together in some website, and the best ones will be exhibited at the National Waterways Museum in Gloucester.
Great stuff. Really nice to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Interesting, isn't it, that this morning we're talking about caravans, Richard's talking about caravans, and we're talking about canal boats, the twin cornerstones, I'd say, of the classic British touring holiday.
Jules, thank you very much for that.
I'm talking about embarrassing moments.
We are. We saw earlier the poor chap in South Africa who fell off his chair midway through an interview. Got quite a few emails this morning. Some of them very long-winded from you about embarrassing moments. One here from Paula says she was at Buckingham Palace. Very grand setting for a situation. 2 hours of wine and drink, only canapes to eat. A little bit tipsy, she admits. And knelt down to look at someone's watch. And as the chap looked down at me, he then brought his hand upwards. And, of course, it was Prince Philip. And to add insult to injury, I then asked him what the time was. I cringe even now. He was probably very relaxed about it, wasn't he? What's wrong with that?
I'm sure you would be. Once in Australia, says Robin, I was being interviewed by a high-profile panel for a pretty good job. Unfortunately, after I'd said goodbye to everybody, I lost my orientation. Couldn't remember which of the doors was the one through which I'd initially entered. Feeling 5 pairs of eyes on my back, says Robin, I took a deep breath, bravely chose one to open. A variety of brooms, cloths and mops fell out. I'd chosen the cleaning cupboard.
Must happen a lot.
Surprisingly, says Robin, they got the job.
Oh, well, you made an impact, you see, that's what counts. Still to come, a cut above the rest. Children in Need, Celebrity Scissorhands salon opens this weekend.
Sharpening their clippers on breakfast are going to be the former Apprentice contestant Lucinda Ledgerwood. Ouch! And hairstylist to the stars, Lee Stafford.
That was bad hair.
Yeah.
Let's get a look at the local news where you are.
See you in a moment.
Good morning. A high-powered commission is being set up to try to protect the North West from the worst effects of a possible recession. Regional Minister Beverly Hughes will lead a new group trying to keep funding flowing to local businesses. Latest figures show that unemployment in the North West has risen by almost 10% so far this year. Citizens Advice Bureau in Manchester say the number of people in mortgage arrears has doubled. But tonight, North West Tonight will be coming live from the Cheshire town of Northwich, where we've been talking to local business people.
I think people are worried and people are battening down the hatches, and it's most certainly having an effect, yeah.
You find that people are driving less, so they have less need for our services. So, you know, the fuel costs, the fact they've got less spare money, they're not going on journeys.
We've just finished our financial year and we've had the best year that we've had by a long way, so we haven't noticed any downturn in the financial economy yet.
Gale force winds and heavy rain have caused problems in the Lake District. Flood alerts were issued in South Cumbria as rivers rose yesterday. More than 200 people were stranded at Oxenholme Station after the West Coast main line flooded near Shap, and in some areas, flash floods closed a number of roads. British Waterways has released rarely seen footage of the famous Anderton boat lift in Cheshire.
It cost £1 per boat to go either up or down the Anderton lift. And
These pictures show the world's first boat lift being used in the late 1960s. They've been released to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the 1968 Transport Act. Tickets for two huge homecoming gigs by the Manchester band Oasis go on sale today. The Gallagher brothers will perform in Heaton Park on June the 6th and 7th next year as part of a nationwide tour of outdoor venues. Travel news now. There are strong winds on the M6 in Cheshire this morning. A 50-mile-an-hour speed limit's in force in both directions around the Lymm interchange. There are also warnings of strong winds on the Thelwall Viaduct and the Barton Bridge. And the bad weather's meant the Isle of Man steam packet 9:30 sailing from Douglas to Heysham and the 12:15 service from Heysham to Douglas have both been cancelled. There may also be delays on the Stena Line service from Fleetwood to Larne. Let's find out about that weather in more detail. Here's Heather.
Thanks, Ellie. Good morning. Well, it's windy, but the good news is it's mostly dry and we will see some sunny spells as we go through today. Just the very slimmest chance of seeing a shower, but for many of us, a dry, bright day with some nice spells of sunshine, top temperatures around 12 Celsius. That wind very noticeable along the coast and across the hills. Tonight, that breeze will continue to blow. Temperatures generally getting down to around 5 Celsius. We'll get clear skies in places. It's a dry night, but this band of rain is the one that you've got to keep your eye on because we do have a Met Office weather watch in operation for tomorrow for heavy rain across parts of Cumbria, just as it was yesterday. We've got some heavy rain across parts of Cumbria. Further south, it'll be lighter and more patchy. Top temperatures only getting to 11 Celsius. We've got gale force winds blowing at times as well, so it's not going to be a great day. The good news is, though, that Sunday things get on even keel, drier and brighter, Ellie.
Thank you. That's it for now. More in half an hour's time. Bye-bye till then.
My name is Edwin Muirden, and I have a remedy to cure all ills.
She's old but dead.
If there's one chance in a million he can save her.
He has magic.
And why not?
Imagine what we could achieve.
Shh. Keep the magic secret.
Merlin, tomorrow at 5:50 on BBC One.
Good morning. You're watching Breakfast with Charlie State and Susanna Reid.
16 years of growth over. Official figures are expected to show the economy is shrinking for the first time since 1992.
And what do the financial markets make of it? Well, they've just opened and they are sharply lower. More details in a minute.
Good morning. It's Friday, the 24th of October.
Also ahead this morning, we'll find out how that economic gloom is hitting ordinary businesses.
Yes, 80% of the country's caravans are made in this part of the world near Hull. We're going to be hearing from both sides of the coin, from one of the bosses of the biggest caravan making firm in the country, and from a guy who was laid off a couple of weeks ago, who used to make caravans but has found another way to earn a living. It's more in 20 minutes.
New plans to give stay-at-home mums and carers access to a full state pension. Changes could benefit 500,000 women.
Doctors are told to stop prescribing an anti-obesity drug over health fears. We'll talk to one man who says it's the only way he can lose weight.
I felt really good about it, and I've seen the weight coming off, and I'm really cross now that I'm not going to be able to continue it.
the unsung heroines of World War II. We'll talk to two of the Flying Nightingales who've finally been honoured.
Well, he wasn't smooth enough for the judges. Strictly's latest evictee, Don Warrington, will be here with Lilia and Anton. They're looking forward to tomorrow night, where it's the Viennese Waltz or the Paso Doble for the remaining celebrities.
Good morning. First, our main story. Official figures released later this morning are expected to show the UK economy has shrunk for the first time in over 16 years.
It means that over the past 3 months, when you add up every sector of business, the economy actually lost money. Officially, it can't be called a recession until more data is released in January. But even the Bank of England suspects we're already there.
This cave complex in South Wales should be a rock-solid business. But even though visitors are still coming to see all the attractions here, they're spending less on sandwiches and souvenirs. And when businesses do less business, the economy starts to contract.
The caves have got through world wars, we've got through foot and mouth, we've got through a whole host of things, but none of us have ever really been in the sort of recession that the government's talking of.
The word recession may be unfamiliar to anyone under 30. The last time the economy shrank at all was back in 1992. Since then, the UK has had an astonishing 16 years of growth, until today, when the figures are likely to take us back into the red.
Today has been an extremely difficult and turbulent day.
Those commentating back then say things may not be quite so bad this time.
What I think the Chancellor needs to do is to help restore confidence. A 1 percentage point cut in interest rates would help restore confidence.
With a bit of luck, this recession isn't going to be as deep as the last one. And the reason for that is that the inflation peak is much lower. Last time inflation peaked at 10.9%, and you had a sort of sympathetic response from wage inflation.
But whatever the technical reasons for it, and whenever it is declared, this recession will mean hardships. And where a single business suffers, the effects ripple out quickly to others nearby. Brian Milligan, BBC News.
Well, Simon is at the Stock Exchange for us. Simon, we're braced for this one today, aren't we?
We are. Everyone's been talking about it, bandying this word around for weeks. We've got a couple of very important voices adding to that chorus in the shape of Mervyn King, Governor of the Bank of England, on Wednesday, and of course Gordon Brown also started using the R word. It means, of course, that every 3 months the government tots up everything we've made, everything we've earned with everything we've spent, and they compare it to the 3 months before. And if you get 2 quarters in a row where the economy shrinks, you have technically what's called a recession. Now, one of the hallmarks of recession are, of course, rising unemployment and negative equity, and we're seeing both of those. For example, just this morning, JCB workers have voted to accept a £50 pay cut rather than see 350 of their colleagues laid off. Goldman Sachs, the big powerful investment bank, says it's going to cut 10% of its workforce. That could be over 3,000 people. And Rightmove, the property company, say they are cutting 20% of their staff. It's also being felt on the high street. John Lewis, the department store, this morning, said that its sales have fallen 8% in the week that just finished on last Saturday. They said particularly bad sales in home electricals and home fashion. Now, have a quick look at the markets. They've just opened. They don't like this much. Down 139 points, or about 3%. There is some silver lining. If there's a global recession, it means there's less demand for oil, which could mean cheaper petrol prices. Have a quick look at this. The oil price has gone down quite a lot. We're at $147 a barrel up here. We're now less than half of that. However, not everyone thinks that's a good idea, particularly the people who produce and sell it. So the oil-producing countries, OPEC, are meeting today. They might cut production in order to get the price back up.
All right, Simon, thank you very much for that. And we'll have more on this all throughout the morning from Simon, of course, at the Stock Exchange, and also Richard Westcott, who's finding out how the downturn is affecting some small manufacturers in Hull. And there is a special day of coverage across BBC News today. You can find out more from the website.
8:05. Hundreds of thousands of women have won the right to claim a full state pension. Others who've stayed at home to raise their children And carers who've not paid enough national insurance to qualify will now be able to make a one-off payment to bridge the gap. It's being seen as a victory for campaigners, as ministers had previously resisted the move. Our political correspondent Gary O'Donoghue is here. Very good morning to you. Why has the government changed its mind?
Well, essentially, it's faced a great deal of opposition to this in the House of Lords in particular, and the pensions bill comes back to the House of Lords next week, and I think they were defeated on this issue last year. They set their face against accepting that defeat, and I think they just don't want to see that kind of defeat again. So there is a good political reason for changing their minds on this.
We say it's going to apply to mums, people who've taken time out of the workplace. Who exactly is this going to apply to?
What you have to realise is that the basic state pension, in order to qualify for it or a part of it, you have to make national insurance contributions during your working life. And the problem has been, particularly for women who have taken time out for children or to care for elderly relatives, that their contributions haven't kept up. And so essentially they can get to pensionable age and realise that they haven't contributed enough in national insurance to get a basic state pension or get a good basic state pension. And so what the government seems to be saying here, and we'll get the detail later on today, is that women can, and anyone in fact, can buy back these extra years that you've missed your contributions, up to possibly a maximum of 12, which will effectively improve the equation that decides how much you get. Now, how much will it cost? Well, it probably cost around about £400 per year you buy back. But the idea really is that £400 is going to be worth a lot more in the actual pension you then eventually get over a period of time. So it may be worth even borrowing that money if you need to. The difficulty here is that some people, when they get to state pension age, are on very low incomes, and they may qualify for the pension credit, you see, and that isn't means tested, so it may not be worth doing this. So really people need to take advice on their own specific circumstances.
OK, Gary O'Donoghue, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Doctors have been told to stop prescribing the leading anti-obesity drug, rimonabant, because of worries about its side effects. Some patients have complained of depression, anxiety and sleep disorders. 5 patients who were taking the drug as part of a trial committed suicide. The drug was only approved for NHS use in England and Wales earlier this year.
Should it have been suspended? Well, in a few minutes we're going to be asking Dr Rosemary Leonard and also David Prout, who's on the drug at the moment, for their thoughts.
Doctors treating the champion golfer Seve Ballesteros will carry out a 3rd operation today to try to relieve swelling caused by a brain tumour. Ballesteros, who won the British Open 3 times, is said to be in a serious condition in a Madrid hospital. He was taken there after collapsing earlier this month. We can speak now to Steve Kingston, who's in Madrid. Steve, tell us the latest on his condition.
Well, he's been diagnosed with something called an oligoastrocytoma, which is essentially a combination of 2 different types of tumour. One generally tends to be benign, the other generally tends to be malignant, although we don't know the exact degree of malignancy in Seve's case. What we do know is that doctors will almost certainly operate for the whole of today. 3 neurosurgeons will first of all try to remove what is left of the tumour, which is said to be very deeply embedded in a difficult to access part of the brain. And secondly, they will try to ease complications that arose after surgery last week, specifically the build-up of fluid on Seve Ballesteros' brain. And in addition to that, they have detected bleeding inside the brain. So doctors will try to ease those symptoms as well.
Yeah, Steve, it is a mark of the impact Seve Ballesteros had, both within golf and more widely. The amount of publicity his health is getting here in the UK, also all over the world, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, here in Spain, he's very well known. He's very well recognised for his achievements in golf. But I think it's fair to say that golf is more of a minority sport here compared to, obviously, the football or, say, Rafa Nadal in tennis. But what is extremely well recognised here is the effect and the impact that Seve had on golf around the world, really leading the revival of Europe, particularly in the Ryder Cup. But no one, I think, in any doubt as to the gravity of the situation. The hospital saying stable but serious, with the emphasis, I think, on serious.
Steve, thank you very much. Steve Kingston speaking to us from Madrid.
9 minutes past 8. Probably at some time you've either been sung or you have sung the nursery rhyme Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Has it made you wonder what a star might actually sound like? Perhaps you thought it was something like the Clangers. Well, listen to this.
French astronomers recorded the sound of 3 stars, which are similar in size to the Sun. They say the technique provides valuable new information about the age and chemical makeup of each star. Kind of metallic sound, very odd.
It does, it sounds like the end of someone banging 2 cymbals together. There we go, now you know what a star sounds like.
8:10, those are this morning's top stories. Still to come, are they finding the heat too much? We'll be asking the finalists battling it out to impress Raymond Blanc and open his new restaurant.
Now, though, millions of people in Britain are obese. The problem is getting worse, of course.
Now, a drug that was used in the battle against the condition has been suspended. Doctors have been told the benefits of rimonabant no longer outweigh its risks.
But David Prout, who's been taking the appetite suppressant since July, isn't happy about that decision, and he joins us this morning, along with our GP, Dr. Rosemary Leonard. Very good morning to you both. David, tell us about the drug and how it works for you.
I was put on it because I'm diabetic and was referred by St Helier Hospital. I was warned about any side effects, that it might make me depressed, but it has been super. I've lost 10 kilos since July and look forward to losing more over the next few months.
Now, David, it's clear for him it's a drug that is working, and the side effects have not sort of caused him any particular concerns. But the results that are coming out are alarming, aren't they?
They are alarming. Right from the word go, when this drug was licensed, which was a couple of years ago in Europe, it was recognised it could cause depression and other psychiatric side effects, and we were warned as doctors to be very careful about prescribing it. The problem has been that since the drug has been rolled out and more prescriptions have been written, it's become apparent that it's not just those with a psychiatric history who are at risk, and people who were previously mentally completely well have suddenly become very depressed, had suicidal thoughts, become aggressive. And also it looks as if the drug isn't as effective in real life as it was in the clinical trials. In clinical trials, people were being very carefully monitored. When it's being prescribed, it seems people stop it and it's not as good as it was thought to be.
And you were talking about depression and suicidal tendencies. There were 5 people who committed suicide part of this trial.
Yes, this was a trial that was carried out earlier this summer, which was done by the drug company, who, it has to be said, have been very responsible about this. They have reported what's happened. There were 5 suicides in the group taking Accomplia. There was only 1 in the other group, and it's now the European Medicines Agency has said enough is enough. We withdraw the authorisation for this.
David, have you spoken to your GP yet about whether what action they're going to take?
No, I haven't, Suzanne, not yet. It only happened yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, are you worried that you are no longer going to be receiving it?
I will be disappointed if I can't receive it, yes. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is.
I mean, Dr. Raven, what are GPs now going to do if they have patients who are on it and it's successful and it's working for them?
If the patient is already on it and is perfectly well, this will be available as an unlicensed medication, which means that the GP is actually taking more of a risk in prescribing it. So that has to be a decision made between the patient and the doctor, and I would imagine those that were on it and are perfectly happy with it will be able to continue for a limited time. I suspect in time this drug will become no longer available.
And David, were there alternatives for you? I mean, how was it you ended up with this drug? Had you tried other things before? Were you given alternatives?
There is a blue tablet which is rather unpleasant to take, which you have to take before you can take the rimonabant, which I took for as long as I could stand it. But no, this seems to be a miracle cure. It's just been wonderful.
And so, Dr. Rosemary, what will you be suggesting to patients who will be coming off this? I mean, what are the alternatives then?
There are a couple of other drugs. The blue pill, Orlistat, can cause gastrointestinal side effects. I mean, some patients find it quite difficult to take. There is another drug, Sibutramine, that again is an appetite suppressant, but again has side effects. I mean, this is a problem area. There is no wonder drug that helps patients lose weight, unfortunately.
Back to the golf clubs. Back to the golf clubs.
Thank you both very much this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed. 14 minutes past 8. You're watching Breakfast, coming up on the programme a little bit later.
It's the last day of our business tour of Britain. We're talking caravans this morning. We're going to be talking to the boss of the biggest caravan making firm in Britain, to a guy who was laid off last week. He's got a wife and a child, but he's found a novel way of making a living. More in a couple of minutes.
Honoured for their bravery in World War II, the Flying Nightingales tell us about their dangerous missions to rescue injured soldiers.
This way.
One fabulous turbulent journey from rags to riches and back again. 2 of the stars of Little Dorrit, Sir Tom Courtenay and Claire Foy, will join us here on the sofa.
Let's get the weather now with Carol Brolly up, but it's twirling.
Yes, it is indeed on both counts, Charlie. It's pretty wet here in London. It's wet in the southeast at the moment, but that will clear. And then for many of us, we're going to enjoy some sunny spells today. Mind you, it's not going to be particularly warm. The breeze or the wind, depending upon where you are, will take the edge off the temperatures. Now in the southeast this morning, as I mentioned, we've got the rain, we've got the cloud. That whole lot is going to move away onto the near continent, clearing Kent round about lunchtime, and then it will brighten up quite nicely. Bright too as we push across the north of England. At the moment we've got a little bit of cloud with the odd spot coming out of it. And then as we push up into Scotland here too currently we've got some showers, and the showers will continue, some of them wintry, over the hills. Some showers not too far away from Northern Ireland, but generally inland across Northern Ireland it's going to be another fine day. And for Wales, well, some beautiful skies to enjoy as we go through the day, as indeed we'll have in the southwest of England. Now, as I mentioned, that rain in the southeastern corner pushing away, brightening up. Here too we'll have some sunshine, but still some showers keeping going for much of the day in the northwest. And here too we're looking at strong winds. Temperatures in the north about 10 or 11 degrees Celsius to 14 in the breeze down in the south. Now, talking of the south, through the course of the night, we'll continue with a good clearance in the sky, so temperatures will drop, and first thing in the morning in the southeast we could well have a touch of frost. For the northwest though, quite a different story. An area of low pressure moving in is going to introduce some heavy rain and also some strong winds. That's how we'll start the day tomorrow. And like yesterday, the prone areas for the heaviest rain are Western Scotland, Cumbria and the northwest of Wales. Falling on saturated ground, it could lead to flooding. And for Scotland and the north of England in particular, we're looking at strong winds gusting 70 to 80 miles an hour. That rain will take its time to clear on Sunday from the southeast, but it will eventually. Then behind it again some brighter skies, a fair bit of sunshine around, but still the showers persisting in the north and the west, and it will feel cold, so some of those showers indeed will be wintry over the hills. By Sunday we'll have a northerly wind, and that northerly wind is set to stay with us until at least Wednesday. And don't forget, this weekend you put your clocks back. That's it, back to you two.
Carol, thank you very much.
Gordon Brown has already uttered the dreaded R word. Now, for the first time in 16 years, figures this morning are expected to show that our economy is shrinking.
So how is this hitting small businesses? Well, all this week we've been on the road finding out how people are surviving the credit crunch.
Yesterday, Richard was in Morley with some market traders. Today, he's in Cottingham, near Hull, in a very plush caravan. Morning, Richard.
Good morning. 80% of the country's caravans are made in this part of the world. We're now going to talk to a guy who's one of the bosses of the biggest company that makes one, Swift Group. It's a £200 million turnover, big company.
He is actually taking more of a risk in prescribing it, so that has to be a decision made between the patient and the doctor, and I would imagine those that are on it and are perfectly happy with it will be able to continue for a limited time. I suspect in time this drug will become no longer available.
And David, were there alternatives for you? I mean, how was it you ended up with this drug? Had you tried other things before? Were you given alternatives?
There is a blue tablet which is rather unpleasant to take, which you have to take before you can take the Rimonabant, which I took for as long as I could stand it. But no, this seems to be a miracle cure. It's just been wonderful.
And so, Dr. Rivian, what will you be suggesting to patients who will be coming off this? I mean, what are the alternatives then?
There are a couple of other drugs. The blue pill, Orlistat, can cause gastrointestinal side effects. I mean, some patients find it quite difficult to take. There is another drug, Sibutramine, that again is an appetite suppressant, but again has side effects. I mean, this is a problem area. There is no wonder drug that helps patients lose weight, unfortunately.
Back to the golf clubs. Back to the golf clubs.
Thank you both very much this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed. 14 minutes past 8. You're watching Breakfast, coming up on the programme a little bit later.
It's the last day of our business tour of Britain. We're talking caravans this morning. We're going to be talking to the boss of the biggest caravan making firm in Britain, to a guy who was laid off last week. He's got a wife and a child, but he's found a novel way of making a living. More in a couple of minutes.
Honoured for their bravery in World War II, the Flying Nightingales tell us about their dangerous missions to rescue injured soldiers.
This way.
One fabulous turbulent journey from rags to riches and back again. Two of the stars of Little Dorrit, Sir Tom Courtenay and Claire Foy, will join us here on the sofa.
Let's get the weather now with Carol Brolly up, but it's twirling.
Yes, it is indeed on both counts, Charlie. It's pretty wet here in London. It's wet in the southeast at the moment, but that will clear. And then for many of us, we're going to enjoy some sunny spells today. Mind you, it's not going to be particularly warm. Then behind it again some brighter skies, a fair bit of sunshine around, but still the showers persisting in the north and the west, and it will feel cold, so some of those showers indeed will be wintry over the hills. By Sunday we'll have a northerly wind, and that northerly wind is set to stay with us until at least Wednesday. And don't forget, this weekend you put your clocks back. That's it, back to you two.
Carol, thank you very much.
Gordon Brown has already uttered the dreaded R word. Now, for the first time in 16 years, figures this morning are expected to show that our economy is shrinking.
So how is this hitting small businesses? Well, all this week we've been on the road finding out how people are surviving the credit crunch.
Yesterday, Richard was in Morley with some market traders. Today, he's in Cottingham, near Hull, in a very plush caravan. Morning, Richard.
Good morning. 80% of the country's caravans are made in this part of the world. We're now going to talk to a guy who's one of the bosses of the biggest company that makes one, Swift Group. It's a £200 million turnover, big company, but you have had to lay off 250 people who are telling us what's going on in the economy, what's actually happening for the people who work in it at the coalface. That's what this week is all about.
People are wanting cheaper products for the lunch. We're not seeing the regulars quite as often. I think they're actually making sandwiches at home and taking them to work.
Day 2, and we've moved across the water from Wales to the Wirral. I mean, your company's doing well, that's good news, you've got your jobs, but how do you feel personally about everything going on?
For me, I've had to delay my pension until I'm 70 plus.
Now over there is the village of Hayfield, birthplace to Arthur Lowe, and picture box beautiful. But all is not rosy for many of the small businesses there. Just quickly, Pam, business has been all right for you actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been okay at the moment, yeah.
Hello, they should be expecting us. Oh, here we go. Hi, we're getting you up early, I know that. Just want a very, very quick chat with you.
The business is just going down and down and down. We can't see a future for smaller businesses.
What have you all noticed about business in the credit crunch times?
Well, I think people are looking for bargains, and we get bargains. They do go for cheaper end of stuff, and then when they come to weekends, if they've got a few quid left, they go for dearer cuts, you know, your joints and things like that.
You've all been at this game quite a long time. You've seen other sort of downturns. You're pretty confident about the future?
Very confident, yeah.
Richard, really quickly, how do you think this story's been handled by the press and by the government?
Badly, overhyped and frightened people. The government really needs to get confidence back to give people the confidence to start spending again.
That's a message I've heard a lot this week as well. Business is down, people are losing their jobs, but there's a real fight there and people are saying, look, we've been through things like this before, we'll get through it again.
Richard?
Yes, thank you very much for that, Richard.
22 minutes past 8. There is, of course, a lot more about the economy on the BBC News website, as well as more detail on the figures. There's also information and tips on things like what to do simply if you've lost your job or you're facing that prospect.
Yes, time now is 23 minutes past 8. Now, they risked their lives to help evacuate more than 100,000 wounded soldiers from the battlefields of Europe during World War II.
Now, more than 60 years later, the bravery of the Flying Nightingales has finally been recognised. 7 nurses were honoured with Lifetime Achievement Awards by the Duchess of Cornwall last night, and 2 of them join us now. 2 of the Flying Nightingales, Joan Crane and Mary Lack. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
And lovely to see you. And Joan, just tell us what it means to have been honoured for what you did.
Well, I'm absolutely amazed. I really am. But after the Land Army people ended up with a medal, I thought, well, we must get something.
Yeah.
Now, Joan, I'm just looking behind me. This is a picture of you at that time.
Yes, that's it.
So how old were you then?
22, I think.
Your early 20s?
Yeah.
And you asked, I mean, in these days now, people think it's an extraordinary thing for to ask someone to do. But what were you asked to do? Explain what the role was.
Well, just to look after the casualties.
You flew out in the planes?
Yes, we flew out with freight and found somewhere to sit on it. And then when we got there, we brought back the casualty.
Mary, when you joined, did you know very much about what you'd be asked to do and the inevitable dangers that you would face?
I think I did, because we all came from other stations, you see. We were at sick quarters, and we were with patients that were in bed. There was hospitalisation then at sick quarters, where I was stationed anyway. I was at Winthrop, just outside Newark, and we had a lot of sick people with one thing and another. So I more or less knew. But with the air ambulance, they were all wrapped up in the bandages and one thing and another, so that they just needed fluids, and if they wanted to talk, but I can't remember any of them having a conversation except asking where they were going and when they'd arrive.
Yeah, now Mary, behind you there, we can see it, well, we can see it on the pictures here. This is, that's you highlighted in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah.
And who are the rest, who is this team you're with?
Pardon?
Can you remember this picture? Who's in the rest of the...
Yes.
Who are these people?
Well, I'm the third one along from the left.
Yeah.
And the others are the other air ambulance people.
So that would have been taken at the time?
We were an air ambulance pool.
Right.
And those girls are all air ambulance pool. And the men, I don't think any of them, we had 5 men at that time in the first slot. And I don't think that any of those men there are them from the air ambulance pool. But I might be wrong, because it's a long way back. But I can't see the back row very well.
Joan, you did 67 flights as a flying Nightingale. Yeah. You didn't know, did you, when you were going to set off or what you were going to face?
Depending on the
went?
weather.
Well, sort of.
Yeah. And I know that you've said that one of the biggest thrills you had when you brought back British prisoners of war.
Yes, yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, we got them all on board, and all they wanted to do was stay awake so that they were awake when they got to England. So I said, well, no, I said, you'll probably fall asleep. I said, I will waken you when we get within the sight of the cliffs of Dover. So, cliffs of Dover, I'm going to cry in a while.
Was it such an iconic sight for them?
It was. They sort of all sat up, and they were just skin and bone. Oh, it was so sad. And
but you woke each of them up and said, it's the White Cliffs.
Well, some of them were awake, but I woke them up and they were crying, so was I.
And Mary, you finally got official recognition for the work you did, which is wonderful. It must have been a very special moment last night.
This Defence Medal was a very big surprise for a start, and a lovely surprise to meet the Duchess of Cornwall. And she was charming and talked to us. You know, she actually had a conversation with us.
Well, thank you both so much for coming in this morning.
Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Are you on tomorrow morning when I watch it 10 to 8?
We will be on.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning we'll be here in the same place.
Well, I'll wave to you.
Lovely to see you this morning. Stay where you are for a moment.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for joining us. Just approaching at 8:30. Coming up, the BBC News Channel, of course, will bring you all the latest news from home and abroad.
But here on Breakfast, cut above the rest, Children in Need Celebrities Scissorhands salon opens this weekend. Sharpening their clippers on Breakfast Hour, former Apprentice contestant Lucinda Ledgerwood, hairstylist to the stars, Lee Stafford.
Look forward to that. Time now, though, to get the local news where you are. We'll see you in a moment.
Good morning. A high-powered commission is being set up to try to protect the North West from the worst effects of a possible recession. Regional Minister Beverly Hughes will lead a new group trying to keep funding flowing to local businesses. North West Tonight will have in-depth reports this evening on the economic downturn. Liam O'Donoghue reports.
Recession's already hit the Northwest's industrial giants. Earlier this week, falling sales forced Vauxhall to shut down its huge Ellesmere Port plant for 10 days. Next Monday, the Jaguar Land Rover factory at Hale Wood will halt production for a week. The firm's seeking 200 voluntary job losses in the UK. In the Northwest, unemployment has already risen 9.9% so far this year. In Manchester, citizens' advice workers say the number of people in mortgage arrears has doubled. This evening, Northwest Tonight will be live in the Cheshire town of Northwich, finding out how the downturn has affected people there.
Gale force winds and heavy rain have caused problems in the Lake District. Flood alerts were issued in South Cumbria as rivers rose yesterday. More than 200 people were stranded at Oxenholme Station after the West Coast main line flooded, and in some areas, flash floods closed a number of roads. British Waterways has released rarely seen footage of the famous Anderton boat lift in Cheshire.
It cost £1 per boat to go either up or down the Anderton lift.
These pictures show the world's first boat lift being used in the late 1960s. They've been issued to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the 1968 Transport Act. Unusual buskers are performing instant scientific experiments at Piccadilly Station in Manchester this morning to promote the Manchester Science Festival. Now, later today you can download instructions on how to carry out the experiments yourself, and this evening we'll try one out live on Northwest Tonight. Something to look forward to. Time for the weather now. Here's Heather.
Good morning. Well, today isn't a bad day. It's going to be mostly dry and bright. We'll see some nice spells of sunshine as well. It's just the very slimmest chance of seeing a shower. It's breezy though. That wind you'll certainly notice across the coast and across the hills. Top temperatures today 12 Celsius, but for many of us a dry, bright day with some pleasant spells of sunshine. Tonight is dry as well. Again, it's going to be breezy. Temperatures dipping down to around 5 Celsius where we get some breaks in the cloud. But tomorrow morning, that band of rain that's just creeping in now will be with us. And that means we've got problems. We've got a weather watch in operation for parts of Cumbria where we are going to get some heavy rain tomorrow. That rain predominantly across parts of Cumbria, but we will see it further south as well. Not quite as heavy, but still very much in evidence. Gale force winds and top temperatures of 11 Celsius. So a wet and windy day tomorrow. Things do cheer up. It becomes drier and brighter by Sunday.
Now the weather's affecting the roads and public transport. There are strong winds on the M6 in Cheshire. A 50-mile-an-hour speed limit's in force around the Lymm interchange. Also, warnings of strong winds on the Thelwall Viaduct and Barton Bridge. And the bad weather's also meant some of the Isle of Man steam packet sailings have been cancelled this morning. That's it from me for now. More in half an hour. Bye-bye till then.
Good morning. You're watching Breakfast with Charlie State and Susanna Reid.
Our top story this morning, official figures released later are expected to show the UK economy has shrunk for the first time in over 16 years.
It means that over the past 3 months, when you add up every sector from retail to manufacturing, the economy actually lost money. Officially, it can't be called a recession until more data is released in January, but the Bank of England suspects we're already in one.
Yes, and there's a special day of coverage about the economic downturn across BBC News today. You can find out more from the website.
Hundreds of thousands of women have won the right to claim a full state pension. Mothers who've stayed at home to raise their children and carers who haven't paid enough national insurance to qualify will now be able to make a one-off payment to bridge the gap. It's being seen as a victory for campaigners as ministers had previously resisted the move.
Doctors have been told to stop prescribing the anti-obesity drug Rimonabant because of worries about its side effects. Some patients have complained of depression, anxiety and sleep disorders. 5 patients who were taking the drug as part of a trial committed suicide. The drug was only approved for NHS use in England and Wales earlier this year.
Doctors treating the champion golfer Seve Ballesteros will carry out a third operation today to try to relieve swelling caused by a brain tumour. Ballesteros, who won the British Open 3 times, is said to be in a serious condition in a Madrid hospital. He was taken there after collapsing earlier this month.
Now you've heard the expression stop clowning about. Well, in Mexico they just can't, because several hundred clowns from all across Latin America have descended on Mexico for 4 days of classes and competitions. They might look funny to us, but entertaining children is, by all accounts, a serious business. Coloured wigs, outlandish costumes and unusually large footwear, all being seen rather more often than normal in Mexico.
And as you were saying, not everybody loves a clown.
I can't remember the name for it, the clown phobia thing, but anyway.
I think clown phobia pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Those are the main stories this morning, 8:33. Now here's what's coming up a little later on Breakfast. Dawn and Lilia were the last couple to leave the Strictly dance floor. They'll be here along with our very own Strictly expert, Anton Dubek, to tell us what we can look forward to this weekend.
Sometimes you just tend to work against one another.
One family's turbulent journey from rags to riches and back again. Two of the stars of Little Dorrit, so Tom Courtenay and Claire Foy, are live on the sofa.
9 couples started, now only 2 remain, and we're going to be meeting the finalists who are about to battle it out for Raymond Blanc's new restaurant.
And clippers at the ready, all in the name of charity. The Celebrity Scissorhands Salon opens for business this weekend. We'll hear from celebrity trainee Lucinda Ledgerwood and hairstylist to the stars Lee Stafford. That is all still to come before the end of the programme.
Now, though, Mike is here.
Good morning. I once cut off all my own hair, or most of it anyway. I was so scared. I was so scared about going to the barber's when I was about 9 years old.
So you did it yourself?
Yeah, it was terrible.
You still do it yourself?
No. Actually, well, you're just trying to say something. But talking of hair-raising moments, and, well, the Spurs manager, Vadi Ramos, tearing his hair out last night because they were on top in Italy until the goalkeeper did something that goalkeepers should never do, and that's dilly-dally in your own penalty area. All young keepers are told, don't dwell on the ball in your own penalty area. If only the Spurs keeper had done that, they might well have won in Italy. Instead, the Tottenham manager, Vadi Ramos, is under greater pressure as their form in Europe is starting to reflect their position at the bottom of the Premier League. As I say, they started brightly, but fell behind to Udinese in Italy when keeper Aurelio Gomez was caught napping by the Udinese striker. He panicked there and brought down the striker, conceding the penalty, and it was left to Antonio Di Natale to tuck away the penalty. To make matters worse, Jamie O'Hara was sent off before the hour mark for 2 successive fouls. Udinese then made it 2-0 with 4 minutes remaining. Substitute Simone Pepe, the scorer. What a different story though for Aston Villa. They were 2-1 winners at home to Ajax. Captain Martin Larsson put his side in front after just 8 minutes at Villa Park. A great jump in front of the goalkeeper here. But Martin O'Neill's side were pegged back when Ajax themselves scored from a corner. Thomas Vermaelen with a powerful header for the Dutch team. But it was Villa's night, thanks to some great work from Ashley Young, who gets to the byline here, and then watch how his ball, cut-back ball, goes all the way through to Gareth Barry, and great finish. So that gives Villa even a winning start in their group. No such luck though for Portsmouth. Harry Redknapp was left cursing the referee as his side lost 3-0 to Braga in Portugal, and it doesn't get any easier for Pompey. Their next Group E match at the end of next month is against the favourites, AC Milan no less. There's no stopping Britain's #1 tennis star Andy Murray, who's into the quarter-finals of the St Petersburg Open now, up against the world number 50, Ernest Gulbis. Murray broke the Latvian serve in the 8th game, and the world number 4 went on to take the first set by 6-4. Murray breezed through the second set to win the match in less than an hour, and that made it 50 wins on the tour this year. Well, next up for the defending champion is the Serbian Janko Tipsarevic. Now, if you're a fan of Test cricket, a dangerous precedent has been set. It's been hit for 6 by the Indian Premier League, it seems. The BBC understands that Sri Lanka's cricket tour to England next spring is on the brink of being cancelled because all their top players have signed up for the IPL. Well, it's further proof that the 2020 game is eating into the Test match calendar. Sri Lanka had been invited over in place of Zimbabwe, but the Sri Lanka Cricket Board probably hadn't realised that the players would dig their heels in, and it's understood the board will now get some money from their Indian counterparts so that their players can play in the IPL. A real blow to the Test format. The West Indies, though, could now replace them in England. And of course, the Rugby League World Cup begins in Australia tomorrow. It's quite a confusing format. It's not the usual format of, say, 16 teams, 4 groups of 4. No, because you've got 3 groups. Now, in Pool 1, you've got Australia, England and New Zealand, along with Papua New Guinea. And strangely enough, 3 of those teams go through. So Papua New Guinea weren't happy with that at all. They almost pulled out. But then in Pool 2 and Pool 3, you've got 3 teams, France, Fiji, Scotland, Samoa, Tonga, Ireland. And only the group winners go through. It does seem rather staged, so you get the strongest teams through, if you like, to the semi-finals, the final 4. But great coverage of this on the BBC. Highlights, BBC 2 Sunday night, but all the time, highlights via the red button on the BBC Sport website. 10 minutes highlights of every match and commentary on every game involving the home nations on 5 Live Sports Extra.
Very good, Mike. Big sports fan has just joined us.
Ah, yes.
Sir Tom Courtenay.
Welcome.
Hull City.
Oh, what a season.
Claire supports Manchester City.
Yeah, better believe it.
That's peculiar, isn't it?
But you've not come here to talk about sports,
No.
or you can if you like.
No.
You've come here to talk about Little Dorrit. You couldn't have missed that there's an air of doom and gloom about the economy at the moment. In fact, it seems almost Dickensian, some might say. So, what better time for an adaptation? Nice sitting down with a mug of cocoa in front of the television of a Sunday night. Little Dorrit, one of the writer's classic novels.
Yes, an all-star cast brings to life the story of one family's journey from rags to riches and back again. Playing the title role of Little Dorrit is Claire Foy, with the role of her father taken on by Sir Tom Courtenay.
That's
They're
why
both
they're
here,
here.
of course. We'll have a chat with you in just a second. We'll have a look at the programme first.
Where did you go?
I went to call upon a lady, Father.
Just a social call?
Yes, Father, just a social call.
You weren't able to leave a card.
She didn't ask one, Father. It didn't arise. It wasn't necessary.
She understood you were a lady? She understood that my daughter is a lady, the daughter of a gentleman, as good a lady as any other lady.
Yes, Father, I'm sure she did. Father, I'm to go to her 3 days a week.
But not to work.
No. I think she needs companionship, Father.
I need companionship!
You're not a nice man.
I'm very sweet. With a very headstrong, difficult daughter.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how I saw it. No, I'm a very heavy father, I'm afraid.
Tell us
with
a
a
little
very
bit.
sweet daughter.
So tell
That's
us a
the
little
story.
bit about Little
Pardon?
Dorrit. Yeah, I mean that is the story, but just describe the story and who you are and why you're where you are.
Well, Claire, Amy, is born in the Marshalsea prison because her father has been incarcerated there. And she spends her formative years in the prison, and then someone very sweetly finds out that he's not a debtor after all, that he's in fact immensely rich. Now this seemed to me to be, you know, fair bunkum really, Dickensian bunkum, but of course the events of the last few weeks have made it sound really rather
rather
poignant.
real.
Mm.
Now, Claire, for you, and you two, if I may say, are sort of opposite ends of your careers, aren't you? Because Claire,
You mean I'm just starting
No,
out?
I'm
and she's near
thinking.
the
I
end?
mean, you were right at the beginning. This is your first major role, isn't
Yeah.
it? And you've sort of been there, done it all, and still at the top there. I mean, it's interesting working alongside one another. Must be interesting.
Yeah, he's got lots of advice to offer, haven't you, Tom?
No, well, there's no point in offering her advice because she wouldn't take any notice anyway.
Is it a bit daunting working? Because there's some other wonderful names in this. Alan
Yeah.
Armstrong, some fantastic
Matthew
actors.
McFadden, Sue
I
Johnson.
know,
I mean, you
yeah.
know, it is one of those adaptations which is packed with big names, isn't it? So you must have been over the moon to be picked.
Well, yeah. Every time they kept on telling me a name, I kept on expecting it to be someone, hopefully, that I hadn't heard of. But every time it was someone amazing like Tom. But no, the cast is just incredible. And everyone is totally believable as the parts. It's just beautiful.
So just tell us about that moment when you realised you were going to be in that rather illustrious lineup in one of Andrew Davis's adaptations, Dickens, you know, that's going to be seen by so many people. And it's going to be a big breakthrough moment for you.
Well, I don't think I really thought, I just think I was in shock until I actually started doing it. So I didn't really think about it all that much. I think it was quite wise. And then once you start doing the job, then it sort of takes care of itself, really. But when I heard, I was in the foyer of the National Theatre, so I couldn't scream or anything like that, so I was screaming silently into the phone. And then the fear set in, I think, pretty immediately after that.
We can see another clip now. Let's have a look at this bit, and you can explain exactly what it is afterwards. Watch it up here.
You're very small, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I am strong.
Are you now? You look a shrimpy little thing to me. Well, she's upstairs this way.
It's a bit dark, sir.
She likes it dark, and I'm used to it. Not afraid of the dark, I hope.
No, sir.
Good girl. Not afraid of me either, I hope.
No, sir.
Well, you ought to be. Because I'm a terror when I'm roused.
I'm afraid of Alan Armstrong and that, and I've been trying to practice that kind of grunt he does, that because it's so intimidating. It's a wonderful character he plays, isn't it?
I know, it's fantastic.
He's gone to town on it, hasn't he? He's really embraced that frightening kind of persona.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of. See, it's Dickens. He writes these wonderful parts. That's why actors love playing them, because both Dickens, I mean Shakespeare, some of the small parts are not very good, but every part in Dickens is interesting and attractive to actors, because I suppose Dickens imagined them, and that's why he brought them to life in his imagination, and that's why actors love to sort of play them.
And you mentioned, at the beginning of the interview that, it's a story, obviously, of people who fall on hard times, people in debt. I mean, do you feel at this time in the economic climate it does have a sort of added piquancy and added poignancy?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, the idea of a debtor's prison, if they still had one, it might sort things out, you see. I mean, for months, once sent offers to lend you money. They're always offering, banks are always, and institutions are always offering to lend you money. Well, maybe they'll stop that now, because we don't, we'll find now from seeing Little Dorrit that perhaps it's not so clever to end up in a debtor's prison.
And Claire, these debtors' prison. I mean, such an interesting idea, this debtor's prison, where people spent their lives and children were born and grew up, and it was, people could come and go, couldn't they?
I think Pa's not allowed to come and go. Other daughter and son and brother, they can come and go, but Pa is stuck there.
Because you were in for the dead.
Yes,
but I think it's what makes Amy quite unique, because I don't think actually in those times, because Dickens' dad was in a debtor's prison as well. He was in the Marshalsea, so it's kind of written kind of quite closely to him as well.
In fact, when Dickens was a boy, that's when his father was incarcerated. But in fact, when Dickens was grown up, the prison was already closed, but the place obviously stayed in his imagination. And which came first, I don't know, the child born in the prison or the father who was incarcerated there. I don't know which idea.
I have to say, Tom,
first.
you're in my favourite film of all time, which is Billy Liar. That film I can watch over and over again. I love it so much.
More than I can.
Thank you very much for coming and see us this morning. Nice to see you.
And it is fantastic. Little Dorrit starts on Sunday, 8 o'clock on BBC One. It's a real treat.
Now, the scissors have been sharpened and hair dyes prepared as the Celebrity Scissorhands Academy opens its doors for business this Sunday night.
Yes, the show sees award-winning hairdresser Lee Stafford manage celebrity trainees like the ex-Apprentice star Lucinda Ledgerwood, as the willing public pop in for a quick trim.
Are they mad, you may be asking? No, it's all in the name of children in need, but as you might expect, things don't always go so smoothly. Here's a reminder from what happened last year.
With a packed waiting area, Lil Chris wastes no time with his client. Just 12 minutes into his appointment, and he's already cut off half her hair.
That's really good. You like that? I think that suits you. I used to have my hair as short as Brandon. Really? It was quite a few years ago. How long has it taken to grow this long? 9 years. 9 years of that long hair. It's all gone. Gone in a flash. That looks good, doesn't it? How good does that look? It's just the bits under the bottom.
Yeah, just these little bits around here.
I didn't think to ask her to put her head down forwards.
And Lucinda and Lee join us now. Very good morning. Lee, who were we watching there, and how did they get on
That was
last
little
year?
Chris, and he was attempting to do a one-legged bob, which he's done very terribly.
Did you think so?
Yes. I mean, they've got 3 weeks to try and learn how to cut hair.
Yet.
Well, I hope you do better, darling.
Yeah. So, Lucinda, have you done your training? Are you?
No, we start on Saturday.
Okay, right. And have you ever done any hairdressing before?
The only hairdressing I've done is on my West Highland dog as a child. And
Okay.
I dyed her pink, and I have to admit also, unfortunately, I cut a nipple off as well.
You cut a nipple off? Okay. So
nipple.
I have to say that the thing about Scissorhands, which obviously the thing that makes it so watchable, is that hair is so personal, isn't it? I mean, you really can damage someone by messing up their hair.
And it's not like a bit of food. If you do it wrong, you can throw it in the bin. I mean, it's someone's head. If you cut it wrong, it's there and it's permanent. Someone's got to walk out to the big wide world, and everyone knows what it's like to have a terrible haircut. It makes you feel terrible.
Yeah. But there's wigs. Just in my defence thing, I'm just putting up.
What's he got like at a wig? Oh, he ain't got very pleasant, is he?
Lee, who comes into the Celebrity Scissorhands salon?
All different kinds of people. We've had celebrities in there, normal folk. I mean, it's for a brilliant cause.
But they know what they're doing. They know the risk they're taking.
They do, but even still, when you sit in a hairdresser chair and you have a terrible haircut, no matter how much of a risk you thought it was, you know, it still hits home, doesn't it? You know, it's like when you have a terrible haircut. I mean,
Yes, but if you're deliberately going to a salon where that's
Yeah.
likely to happen, you might be a little bit more
Well, maybe,
forgiving.
but then also put yourself in the trainee's point of view. They're building a rapport with someone, and they really like that person. All of a sudden, they're messing it up.
Yeah.
They feel terrible as well. It's a really bad energy when it all goes wrong. It really is.
So, Lucinda, I mean, I know you've already said that you're not greatly skilled in this area. What made you decide you would give it a try, just for the hell of it?
Well,
really?
first and foremost, it is for children in need.
Yeah.
So any profits that we can raise towards that is obviously, you know, the important thing. And also, it's good to learn a new skill.
Yes.
Yes,
and
it is.
Lee, can you remember a time when you weren't a good hairdresser? I mean, presumably that
Yes.
at every point, at some point, you
Yeah.
were learning too, and you must have done damage to people.
I started from Mum's dining room and I cut hair for the first 6 years without any education. And I made mistake after mistake. And I know what it's like. It feels dreadful when you muck someone's hair up. It makes them feel dreadful, it makes you feel dreadful. But on the flip side of that, if you do something wicked, it makes you feel wicked. It's, you know.
Just give Lucinda a few tips now you're here together. What are the hardest haircuts to do? What do trainee hairdressers always do wrong in that first couple of weeks?
It's hard to hold your parents, to hold your scissors and your comb right. It's hard. Cutting hair is just hard, full stop. It's a craft. It's such a skill.
Is he inspiring confidence in you? It's
a long
really
way to go.
hard.
You've just got to have a bit of confidence. You've got to throw yourself in the deep end because you learn nothing from doing nothing. They've got to have a go.
I think we can see another clip now of, if you'll excuse the pun, of something that happened last year.
Ben has been cutting Suki's hair for half an hour.
Where's my bob, Ben?
Where's your bob?
Where's my bob, Ben?
Alright, don't laugh. Don't like it.
Oh, poor woman. You're still going, look. I feel embarrassed to even go over there.
I feel I look like a boy. There's nothing else you can do to it now, or can you?
How do you feel about it?
I don't like it. I just want a nice style for my birthday. I know, I feel bad.
No,
but
don't. Seriously, no, it doesn't.
I'm really sorry.
We're here to learn
I
it.
know
No,
you're
no, no, no.
trying
It's okay.
It's just one of those moments I can barely watch. I mean, listen to what.
So you're not going to be coming in for a haircut?
She doesn't even know she's letting herself in for it. She's all blasé at the moment, bless
Well, at
her.
least we know poor old Ben's not going to be there.
Away from the show, what is the decorum? If you're sat in the hairdressers, if you've had your hair done and you really don't like it, people don't say, do they? Do you have people really sit there and go, do you know what? I don't like what you've done in the last hour?
You only got to look in someone's eyes to know if they like it or not. They haven't got to say anything.
Yeah.
The body language says it all.
Lucinda, you strike me as somebody who would say.
Absolutely, I would say.
And what do you say?
I'd simply say I don't like it. What can we do about it? I mean, obviously, if you've gone
Change
so
the
short, then there's
hairdresser.
very little you can do. But there's always.
Do you know what I say if
It's
someone says
embarrassing.
that in the academy? I say, I'll bring my assistant manager over, Steve, to sort it out for you.
And that's Steve Strange.
So it goes from bad to worse. So you can have that one, or you can have someone who's worse at it.
It's got to learn, haven't they? It's no good me sorting it out.
I'm
no one's
amazed
going to learn
you get
nothing.
people coming in to have their haircuts.
Well, I'm glad you do, because as you say, it is all for children in need,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
for
absolutely
good
fantastic.
cause.
And Lucinda, I mean, you're going to do a fantastic job, aren't
I
you?
hope so, yeah. Over the weeks.
Have you got the scissors with you? You could have a little...
Little snip later.
Yes, you could. Maybe after the training.
Thank you both very much. Good
Lovely
luck.
to see you. Yeah, good luck.
Good luck to you
Thank
particularly,
you.
Lucinda. Gonna need it.
Celebrity Scissorhands starts on Sunday night at 9 o'clock on BBC Three. And to find out how you could have your hair cut in the salon, go to our website for more information.
Let's get the weather now. Carol's there for us this morning. How is it, Carol?
It's pretty wet across some parts of the country, Charlie. Certainly would ruin your hair this morning. But for the bulk of us today, we're looking at sunny spells. It's not going to be particularly warm. We've got wind in the north of the country, breezes further south, and that will certainly take the edge off the temperatures. So if we start off in the southeast this morning, we currently have the rain here in London. It's continuing to drift steadily southeastwards and will eventually clear round about lunchtime. As we move further north, again some beautiful blue skies to enjoy. As we go through the morning, some sunshine. And across Scotland, still pretty windy, and here too we still have some showers, some of them wintry over the hills. For Northern Ireland this morning, again a fine start to the day with some showers just flirting with the north coast. And then as we sweep across the Irish Sea into Wales, again we'll be seeing some sunshine as we go through the morning, as we will indeed across the far southwest of England. And here too it is rather breezy. So if we pick up the rain band in the southeast, you can see how it continues to migrate off onto the near continent, brightening up behind it with a fair bit of sunshine, but still the showers persisting in the north and the west of Scotland, and still very windy here. Top temperatures today around about 14 degrees Celsius. So as we go through the rest of the afternoon, evening and overnight, there'll still be a good clearance in the sky, which will allow the temperatures to drop, especially in the southeast. And here first thing, we could well have a touch of frost. But it's the northwest I want to draw your attention to. A new area of low pressure swinging in, bringing some heavy rain and some strong winds with it. And that's how we'll start the day tomorrow. The track of this low pressure very similar to the one we had yesterday. The heaviest rain likely to be in similar places like western Scotland, Cumbria and the northwest of England, accompanied by strong winds across Scotland and northern England, gusting to 70 or 80 miles an hour. Now that rain will continue to journey southeastwards. Later on Sunday, clearing the southeast, and behind it again for a bit of brightness and sunshine coming through. At the same time, across the far north of the country, it will be cold. We'll still have showers in the north and the west, and some of them will be wintry in nature, especially so over the hills. We're pulling in a northerly wind on Sunday, which is going to make it feel cool for all of us, despite what the temperatures may well suggest. And it's worth mentioning that as we head through Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, it looks very much like a similar thing is going to happen. We'll continue with the cold northerly wind. There'll still be some showers, and on the hills, once again, they'll fall as wintry showers, so sleet and some snow over the hills of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England and Northern Wales. And don't forget, this weekend, you put your clocks back. That's it. Back to you two.
Thanks, Carol.
If you've been watching The Restaurant, then you'll know the stakes are high. The show follows 9 couples with one dream: to open a restaurant financially backed and personally supported by master chef Raymond Blanc.
And the final of the show is next week, and only 2 couples remain. So who will cook up a storm to impress Raymond, and who will find the heat in the kitchen just too much? The finalists are here: Alistair and James from the Gallery Restaurant, and Russell and Michelle from the Cheerful Soul. We'll speak to them in a moment. First, let's have a look at the highs and lows from last night's show.
At the Cheerful Soul, guests are seated and waiting. But Russell is still adding flourishes to his version of the risotto starter.
But I don't think the same effort's gone into the service as went into the kitchen.
Russell and Michelle, you've been Restaurant of the Week more than any other couple. But Russell, I wonder if you have the passion also in putting in the final.
Service! At the Gallery, instead of bread before the starter, James has made canapes for front of house to serve.
Do you serve bread? We're very pressed for time today, and we're unable to do it.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye now.
I've never eaten a meal with no bread before, but this first course and the turbot weren't too bad.
Alistair and James, against all the odds, you are in the finals. Good luck.
And 2 couples join us now. A very good morning to all of you.
Morning.
Thank you.
Hello
James,
there.
that was the moment we saw just then when you found out that you were one of the 2 couples who got through, and just the fact you put your head in your hands and you've obviously got tears in your eyes just gives us an idea of how hard
it's just because it's just so incredibly stressful, and we never expected to get as far as we did. So just that moment was just amazing, to be honest, yeah.
And for those of you who haven't watched the show, you're the chef, you're front of house.
Yes.
Yes.
And so each week you're sort of tested, aren't you, as to how each department has gone.
Yeah, we're massively tested.
Yeah, sometimes to the limit.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
quite often.
When you watch it back, I mean, I saw you're all watching this quite intently. When you're watching it back there, you're sort of reliving some of those agonies.
Oh, definitely. All
Absolutely.
the memories come back, don't they? All the emotions, because it was such an emotional roller coaster. It was just really, really hard, but excellent fun. So,
and your restaurant is called The Cheerful Soul.
That's right.
And one of the things which I love about you is that every time you get any sort of criticism, you sit there, cheerfully, sort of taking it on the chin.
Bring it on.
I think that's the way it has to work, isn't it? You have to just kind of, take on board what's being said and then learn from it and adapt. You can't, sit there and panic about it.
Do you think it helps? Now, you two are a couple, aren't you? Not in a
Yes.
business sense, but in a personal sense.
Absolutely.
And you guys are not a couple. Do you think? What do you think the advantage and disadvantage? Does that mean when you get criticised, you unite together more? Do you think it helps or it hinders?
Well, I think from our point of view, it helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people had said, they couldn't work with their partner. They'd end up kind of throttling each other like before too long. But we just have one of those relationships where we work really well together. So,
No recriminations in private after.
No, we've worked together for 2 years previous to being on the restaurant anyway, just because we love it, and so that's why we want our own restaurant.
James and I, so I mean, every week you're, as you were saying, you're challenged and you're asked to do all sorts of tricky things. One of the things that happened in the last couple of episodes was that just as you're preparing for a really big evening, when you know it's going to be sort of fully booked and really stressful, Raymond Blanc rings up and says, you're going to have a full table of Michelin-starred chefs and front of house managers. At which point, the pressure just seems to almost... James, you put your head in your hands and just think, I was worried you're going to crack.
Pure and simply because I knew the sort of levels that they were expecting. So it was very, very difficult. And we've only got, you have to think that most professional kitchens and restaurants have a full, roughly sort of 20 hours to prep. We had sort of 3-4 to sort of really pull it out of the bag, and it was very, very nerve-wracking. Amazing to meet them all.
Well, you're sort of quite abrasive character, I think, as you sort of mentioned it in the programme, that you're naturally quite sort of, you're up and quite up for things. Do you find it very hard when people have a go at your food? Not to just say, no, look, this is good food, you're wrong, I'm right, I made it. Is there a bit of you always that's just like,
yeah, of course
zip it up?
Of course there is, but you're open for criticism every day in this industry, so it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get criticised. From sort of pub level to sort of 3-star Michelin. So, but it's good, like Russell said, you take it on board, you learn from it, really.
Let's have another look at you in action in your restaurant, The Gallery.
At The Gallery, James and Alistair have gone for the fast brasserie-style service, suggested by Sarah.
We've got drinks on every table. Every table's had canapes.
Okay.
And they've been here for 20 minutes, so I'm reasonably happy.
Okay.
The starters will be out in a second. So if you don't mind, I'll just...
No, you go off. Yeah.
Are these two ready, Chef?
Yeah, yes. She's already gone with 2.
Sarah's here.
Next, another 4, yeah?
James, Sarah's here as well.
Wait!
Right, boys, let's push. Okay, I need these 2 first, please, table 3. Then I need a 4 for table 2, then a 2 for table 1. Thank you. Table 20. Nice one, boys.
Any more, Al?
I need a 6 now, please. And then that's it. Thanks, boys. We've just done 40 starters in 10 minutes.
Saw an empty plate there, which is always a good sign. And Russell and Michelle, I mean, one of the things that's so important in a restaurant is timing, isn't it, Michelle? Getting food out on time. But one of the things that you were spending a lot of time on in the kitchen was getting it looking right.
Sure.
Weren't you? And that sometimes meant that people had to wait a bit longer.
Well, I think as long as the food goes out right and everyone enjoys what they eat, I don't think it matters if you wait just a few minutes. If it's going to be a long time, if it's going to be hours, then obviously there's going to be a problem. But Michelle did a great job keeping them all entertained front of house, and it just meant I got the food right on the plate and everyone enjoyed them.
And the prize you're all chasing is to open a restaurant with Raymond Blanc, which is an extraordinary thing. But I guess in a way, the position you're at now, the profile you've got is extraordinary anyway. I mean, it's going to be good. Whoever wins, it's going to be good, isn't it?
Yeah. We've been so lucky to sort of have the opportunity. So, whoever wins gets the bonus of going into business with Raymond. But hopefully the runners-up, we've had a good kind of exposure, I suppose.
Yeah, and what is he really like, Russell, as a chef? How much have you learned from him?
He's an incredible chef. His knowledge is just encyclopedic, and you have to kind of really work just to kind of keep up with him and kind of absorb everything he's telling you. But yeah, he's an amazing man.
Good luck to you all. So the final is
next
weekend, isn't it?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Good luck to you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, as Charlie says, the final of the show next Wednesday, 8 o'clock, BBC Two, and we will have the winner on breakfast next Thursday. So one of these couples is going to be back.
We will be speaking about Strictly in a few moments' time. First, though, is a last quick look at what's happening or where you are.
See you in a moment.
Good morning. A high-powered commission is being set up to try to protect the North West from the worst effects of a possible recession. Regional Minister Beverly Hughes will lead a new group trying to keep funding flowing to local businesses. With unemployment up by nearly 10% this year, North West Tonight will have in-depth reports this evening on the economic downturn. Gale-force winds and heavy rain have caused problems in the Lake District. More than 200 people were stranded at Oxenholme Station after the West Coast main line flooded. In some areas, flash floods closed a number of roads. British Waterways has released rarely seen footage of the famous Anderton boat lift in Cheshire. These pictures show the world's first boat lift being used in the late 1960s. At Piccadilly Station in Manchester, unusual buskers are performing instant scientific experiments this morning to promote the Manchester Science Festival. Today you can download instructions on how to carry out the experiments yourself, and this evening we'll try one out live on North West Tonight. Tickets for 2 huge homecoming concerts by the Manchester band Oasis go on sale today. The Gallagher brothers will be performing in Heaton Park on June the 6th and 7th next year. And the weather mostly dry with broken cloud this morning and sunny intervals, though there is the chance of an odd light shower later this afternoon. Some sunny spells, highs of 13 degrees. Tonight dry with broken cloud for much of the night. That's it from me for this morning. Don't forget the lunchtime news at 1:30. Bye-bye till then.
7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, well.
Well, that was a kind of a countdown going on there, which is rather
that might have
appropriate.
been some rehearsals.
Yes, for Strictly Come Dancing.
How appropriate.
Welcome back. Poor Don and Lily, after finishing 5 places shy of the bottom of the leaderboard on Saturday, Strictly, they should have been safe to assume they'd waltz through to the next round. But as luck would have it, had to face the dance-off.
Judges decided it was time for them to go. So, were they robbed? Don Warrington and Lilia Kopylova are here. And we are joined by our very own Strictly Come Dancing expert, Anton du Beke, who's going to tell us who he thinks is going to stay and go this weekend. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm all right, actually, yes.
Yes, and
I feel a bit sorry for Don, really, actually.
I know.
And Lilia.
Well, let's have a reminder of last weekend's show.
No, I can't smile without you. I can't smile without you.
Sometimes you just tend to work against one another, but it was a good job.
Very difficult dance once you're over a certain age with the lifts and... Well, no, I wouldn't like to try and lift her up much, but anyway.
You see, I can't smile without you.
If one is to go out, it would be nice to go out on a high, curiously, to know that you've done the dance really well. And I don't think I did justice to the dance tonight.
I think you both came back and did a great job considering the circumstances, and by a whisker, it's a very close call for me. I go with Heather and Brian.
It's always hard when anyone goes out, isn't it?
So we're all sitting there, Anton was saying, look at that, it was beautiful what you did. Did you feel that way? Did you feel a little bit robbed?
Yes, certainly on the second dance, in the dance-off, I thought I did that much better than I did the first dance, and I thought we might just sneak through, but it wasn't to be.
And I don't understand, Anton, what Lem was saying about the lifts, because Don seemed to lift Lilia beautifully.
And showed off a little bit of thigh, I thought, rather. Have a bit of that. He said, look at the marvellous, isn't it? Look at that, steady as a rock. I thought the lifts were gorgeous. They went up and they came down seamlessly. There wasn't a bit of a struggle, wasn't a sort of let out of breath. Oh, thank God that's over. None of that. He popped her up, marvellous. Piece of cake, really. I don't know what Len was talking about.
No.
Don, what people love about this story, and you two, at the end, you were clearly quite emotional at the end of that particular journey.
Yes, I was very upset because I think one of the most important things in this program is that, you know, people either get on or they don't. And Don and I got on particularly well. You know, we became very good friends and we had lots of fun in training. So when that all sort of is over, and also when you know it's not quite your time to go yet, you feel like you've done well and you feel like you deserve to stay in, it's always very upsetting.
Don, how much dancing had you done before Strictly?
None.
Okay.
None at all.
Well, you look amazing on the dance floor for someone who'd not done any dancing before. I mean, Lilia, obviously your relationship is strong, and that must have partly come from the fact that he was very responsive to training.
Oh, he was fabulous as a pupil, absolutely fabulous. I have never known anyone with such patience, because there are lots of long, boring hours in training, and some people just get very frustrated with it all. And Don never did. He just got on with the job and tried really, really hard, and he improved so much from beginning. It's
And Don, going back to when you first got the call about Strictly, did you sort of and ah about the merits of doing it?
Yes, I did. I thought about it, and then I thought, well, I know nothing about it. Why not? I just thought it was outside what I was used to, and I thought I'd have a go. And also, I wanted to learn to dance with a partner, which I achieved somewhat. Not entirely, but somewhat.
And will you carry on now?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. You know, I'm still in the first flush of dancing, and I'm very enthusiastic about it. I mean, I would love to think that in 6 months I'll be dancing away.
We've been practicing all week, you know. We've been practicing Paso Doble, even though we're not competing. We've been doing it all week.
You don't want to leave
ourselves.
So, Anton, take us through the runners and riders left.
Well, there's so many of them I can't remember.
Who's
I think the favourites will remain the favourites because Austin is dancing well and Lisa's dancing well. She did a wonderful American Smooth.
Joint top.
Joint top, I know. Brendan was grumpy the week before because he only got 8s for his run, but he thought he deserved more because the judges' comments was very positive. And this week the judges' comments were, and he got his 9s. So he was thrilled about that as well. And they danced well. I mean, I think they're going to be very strong through the whole competition because she dances beautifully. She's got a lovely way about a lovely look, a lovely figure for dancing. So she's got all the attributes. If she can keep it going, because the competition's long, you know, and if you can keep it going, the stamina going, mentally and physically, then she has a good chance.
One of the talking points from last week was Mark Foster's shirt. I'm not sure if we can see
now,
Mark Foster's
how did you
shirt
feel
again.
about that? There's sort of split opinions about it. It's been interesting.
It was compelling.
We had supper the other evening and we had a discussion about it. It's funny, isn't it?
Yes.
And how did you feel about it personally?
Well, do you know, unfortunately we can't show it because we haven't got a picture of it. It was see-through.
Indeed.
Was it covered in sequins?
Well, no, it wasn't. It was like a mesh top.
That's right.
And it was barely on at all. How did you feel about it?
It looked fantastic.
And
I
Charlie,
think it garnered a lot of votes for him.
Do you think?
Yeah.
It's not something I would choose to wear myself, but, you know, it worked for him. That's the main thing.
Would you wear it? No, well, you shouldn't really talk about it.
Would I wear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd look ridiculous. I wouldn't feel it quite as well as he does.
We can see him rehearsing now. Don, tell us, now you're out of the show.
Yeah.
Tell us what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, how you're all clearly
counselling.
You're great mates. Do you have a choice in what you wear, for example?
Yes, I mean, they do ask you about what you like, and I was being very sedate in what I wore. You do have a little bit of a choice, you know. They offer, they suggest quite strongly that maybe you should wear this.
More revealing. Were you offered the mesh shirt?
I was. Not the mesh shirt, but a lot of sequins was presented to me, and I was told that in weeks to come I would fall in love with sequins. It was heading that way, but I managed to restrain myself a little.
Anton, let's talk about John Sargent, because he's still in.
Snake-hipped Sargent, I think we should call him that. He's trimmed, he's off the man he once was. Look at that. Isn't that a belter? Wonder what it is. Mark, look at that. Oh, Paso Fabulous Doble. That's what we call the 16.
Because he's stamping 16 times?
Well, because there's 16 steps fundamentally. And he does the separation. Oh, the drama. Look at that, and a dainty hand on the hip.
Do you think it bodes well for this Saturday?
I think it looks good. The thing about John and Don, actually, is they both had a charm and a sophistication about what they did. And that's very appealing. You don't have to be dancing tremendously well. You don't have to be, you know, dancing like a professional, but as long as you have a charm and an elegance about what you do, it comes across well. I thought Don had that, and John has that as well.
Don, were you very nervous going? Because it did, as Anton's saying, you look, you know, like you're delighting in the moment, but you must have been nervous.
I was very, very nervous indeed. I don't think I've been as nervous about anything in my life as I was about Saturday night. Yeah, and what was happening was I was getting progressively more and more nervous, actually. It was curious. But yeah, it's very.
Well, you
very
entertained so many
nerve-wracking.
people, and we thought you danced absolutely beautifully.
Thank you very
You will
much.
be missed. Don and Lilia, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
and
you.
Anton, so who's your top tip to win?
Well, I still think, as I said earlier, the favourites are the favourites. I think Austin looking strong and Tom looks strong. With Lisa, we spoke about earlier. Rachel Stevens looks good. She did a marvellous quick step. Was it last week or the week before? Maybe the week before.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to
It was
see
you
top,
next
by the way. Well
Friday.
done. Marvellous. Sort your tie out. I'm so disappointed in the tie.
We're back tomorrow morning. See you then. Bye bye.
Bye bye.